Thank you, Avinash. We start off with news from the region. National security agencies in Trinidad and Tobago are now on high alert, and prison officers are being advised to exercise extreme caution. This follows a series of threatening messages posted to social media against prison officers, the Express reported. The messages have revealed a plot to kill any two officers. Commissioner of Prisons Gerald Wilson has warned officers to exercise caution and vigilance, especially when off duty. Wilson stated that all security agencies were now on high alert and directives are in place. In a statement on Tuesday, Wilson said security would be provided to officers who live in what are deemed high-risk areas. According to the Express, Minister of National Security Stuart Young has also given the assurance that the safety and security of prison officers remain a top priority. A release stated that Young strongly denounces the recent circulation of threatening messages being made against prison officers. He assured that all national security law enforcement and intelligence agencies are on high alert and are working cohesively to support the safety of prison officers. 6 police officers in Mexico City have been suspended as part of investigations into the alleged rape of 2 teenage girls earlier this month. According to the BBC, the mayor announced the decision a day after some 300 people marched in the city demanding justice. The protesters, mostly female, chanted, "They don't protect us, they rape us," at officers. The cases are the latest incidents to trigger outrage over violence against women and girls in the country. The first involves a 17-year-old girl who said 4 policemen had raped her in their patrol car. The second concerns a girl aged 16 who said a policeman had raped her in a museum in the city center. According to the BBC, the mayor, who was criticized for calling Monday's protest a provocation, said the authorities were working with rights groups to implement a strategy to make the city the safest place for women. The Bahamas government has released the Environmental Protection Control of Plastic Pollution Bill of 2019 that makes it illegal to release balloons into the air. The bill also prohibits the import, distribution, manufacturing, possession, and sale of single-use plastic bags and food containers. According to CMC, anyone found guilty of having intentionally released balloons into the air could be fined up to $2,000 for a first-time offense, and in the case of a continuing offense, a further fine of $500 per day during the time the offense continues. The bill also makes provisions for subsequent offenses, resulting in fines of up to $3,000 and a further fine of $700 per day for continuing offenses. It notes that in the case of balloons that are released by businesses, directors, managers, secretaries, or other offices, the bill imposes a fine of up to $5,000. Internationally, China has condemned violent clashes in the Hong Kong protests as behavior that is close to terrorism in a sign of its rhetoric hardening. After days of peaceful protests at Hong Kong International Airport, clashes with police broke out on Tuesday night. The BBC reported that video showed an officer drawing his gun on protesters who beat him with his own baton during the disturbance. It is the second time in a week that Chinese officials have publicly likened the protests to terrorist activity. According to the BBC, some observers believe that the repeated use of such language suggests that China is losing patience with the protesters and could increase the likelihood of an intervention from Beijing. The U.S. said it was deeply concerned by reports of Chinese paramilitary movement along the Hong Kong border and urged China to respect Hong Kong's high degree of autonomy. Millions of Hong Kong citizens have taken part in 10 weeks of anti-government protests demanding democratic reform and an investigation into alleged public police brutality. While many of the demonstrations were peaceful, an increasing number have ended in violent clashes with the police. A well-known bureaucrat turned politician from Indian-administered Kashmir has been arrested in Delhi and sent back to the region, the BBC reported. Shah Fasil was one of the few Kashmiri politicians not detained ahead of India's controversial decision to revoke the region's special status. He was detained at Delhi airport while boarding a flight to Turkey. There is no clarity on where he has been taken in Indian-administered Kashmir, but some local media have said he has been placed under house arrest. The BBC has not been able to independently verify this. Meanwhile, Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan said global powers would be responsible for any war over Kashmir for failing to implement United Nations resolutions. In an address in Pakistani administered Kashmir on Wednesday, Mr. Khan described the move by Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to revoke the special status as a strategic blunder. The region has been in lockdown for more than a week now, with mobile, landline, and internet networks cut off and curfew-like restrictions that ban people from assembling in crowds. However, officials said on Wednesday that these restrictions had now been eased in the Hindu-majority Jammu region. And that brings us to the end of regional and international headlines. Back to you, Avinash.